Hey guys, it's mcfixit here. We're going to be working in this hallway that leads up to the top floor and the top floor riser. We're going to be putting some NuCORE, I believe this is called the Ombre Tan flooring. This is a luxurious vinyl planking. I'm going to walk through all the steps on how I did this. I just did it in this room over here and looks really good. We did just put a rug down as well. But I really like it, and I just kind of want to show you how to do it with a few different floor jams and also a stair tread. We also have it downstairs in our lower level, and we also have it on the stairs, and we have a stair tread that I'll show you how to do as well. This is kind of the gist of what you need to do and how to learn how to do this. Pretty easy system. We'll walk you through those tools, exactly what you need to make this project happen. Here are the tools and the supplies that you're going to need. It is a little more extensive than a lot of the videos that I produce. We're using the NuCORE waterproof flooring. This is what it looks like. I chose the Ombre Tan. It does have kind of a cork back, which is kind of nice. That allows you to have a little bit more noise cancellation. It's kind of a tongue and groove system, and so you will need to measure that out. I got mine at Floor & Decor. I'll try to put a link in the description. Then you'll need a number of these. This is a reducer. It goes in a track, and I went from tile on this side to this flooring. Then when you're going from this flooring to this type of flooring, you can use what they call a T. Then I also used a Stair Nose in this project. And again, each of them use pretty much the exact same piece of metal. Your stair nose would come here, and then your flooring would come up to this point. So each one of those were used. I'll go through the actual tools. I ended up using a rigid 18 brad nailer, and then we also used a rigid jigsaw and a rigid drill, which is just out of picture, with a Phillips bit. We also used a chop saw that's out of picture as well. They're just big tools. And I have this Job Max, which is like a multi-tool. If you need to cut under any of the doorways, works great. Then this box is super fantastic for this type of flooring. It comes with the little pieces that allow you to get the correct gap. I've done this enough that I don't really use much of the gap. Then it also comes with a couple of different, and I bought an extra one as well, a couple of different types of blocks that let you hit it in. I believe this was the extra one that I bought, and works really good. I do like the lips that this one does have on it. Helps pound it in there pretty good. You will want a good rubber mallet. You're going to be doing a lot of hitting, so make sure you have a proper rubber mallet. Outside I have a work table, and with the jigsaw I had to use clamps to clamp it down because you do have to make some weird cuts. A square is very helpful, at least 1 or 2 tape measures. Pencil or Sharpie actually works really well. This is a piece that I cut, and I put ST for start because I can use this on another project as a starter strip. I did cut off that edge, but it does show up very well. If you have any baseboards, you may need something to pry the baseboards up with. And if you have any nails, those brad nails can be taken out pretty easy. And then I also painted, so I started with a primer that is an oil base, and it's a very good one. Then this is a Semigloss Enamel, but it has this urethane Alkyd on it, and it really helps with trim, cabinetry, doors. I love that stuff. I have multiple containers of that Behr stuff at home. You may want to sand down your trim before, and I just use a paintbrush. You can use a roller, whatever you want to use. You'll need a paint opener as well. And for the flooring, it comes with mollies, but I ended up using these 1" by 6 by 1" cabinet screws to really lock it down in the floor. This is on a 2nd level, and I have old knees, so I do like to have some very good insulated knee pads with the gel. Really does help. I don't wear them all the time. I probably should wear them more because I complain the next day. and I drop them and throw them off the table as well. But this is pretty much, oh, you'll need a box cutter too, utility knife. This is pretty much all that I used. I might have used another tool or two, but this is the baseline of what you probably will want. You can get away with doing some different things if you're really good with like a circular saw. You probably could get away with using a circular saw instead of a jigsaw. You could brad nail yourself. One thing with the brad nails, if you can find these are harder and harder to find, and these ones are a little smaller than I like, but they paint these ones white on the end, and just helps with touch up at the end. If you can find brad nails that have those, they used to carry them a lot more, they don't as much now. And if you do have to take out a door, a punch is also pretty helpful. Hopefully this goes through all the tools that you need. Again, you may need a couple of more, but I wanted to at least get you the baseline of what you would want. So we're going to actually not get too much into the floor next door because this is one of the bedrooms. So I'm going to have to cut it here. And you can see we've kind of already done this here. We're kind of doing this in stages, so you can see the piece of metal, and I'll actually be putting the cap on that in a few minutes. But so we're just kind of going from the very center right here, and you'll have that little strip of metal that you'll be putting down, and so it'll have to be cut to size, but that metal will lay pretty much like right there, and that will be kind of the edge of one room and into the next room. I don't like a lot of light shining through. That's why I'm using transition strips. You could put from like one room out to the hallway, totally fine, but I don't like a lot of light, and so I like to sleep well at night. And so I'm going to go ahead and cut that, and so eventually we'll be replacing that carpet with either this same stuff or maybe something different. I'm not certain yet. And same thing with this bedroom back here. We'll just kind of go. Then in here has a wood tile, because this luxurious vinyl planking is not really meant for water-based stuff. It says waterproof. I don't really trust them, sorry. So we'll go ahead and start by cutting this out. Then we'll just rip up all the carpet. You'll have padding, and you'll have the pieces that are the tacks to hold it all in place. So we're gonna just go ahead and jump in. This is just a piece of scrap from the project next door, and so this is gonna help give me a pretty decent line on where I want to cut this. And I'm just using a box cutter utility knife with a really sharp blade. So you should be able to pull that up pretty easily after that, just like that. And you can see the pad. This carpet's old. This house is 17 years old, and it is probably as old as the house. So we're gonna do the same thing over here. We're gonna go just to the inside. And you can also see I didn't paint on some of these edges, which I will hit up as we're doing this video. Sometimes when you're doing projects, you can only get so much done at a time, and so I do my best to complete them. And sometimes completing means you still have more work to do later. And so once that's all pulled through, that's perfect right there. And so that'll let us put that transition strip. In case we don't do it right away, we'll still have that ability. And so we'll just start pulling all this. Same thing with the padding. You may have to cut again for the padding. Sometimes it doesn't cut with the carpet the first time, and you can also just pull back the padding. We will want to remove all these little staples, which just becomes a little bit of a bear, but if you don't do that, you do have the chance of not having level floor. So take your time, make sure all of that is up, and we're just going to keep going backwards. We are going to take off this closet door too, so it just kind of pulls out and has this little push tab at the top, and the same thing back here, and it will lift straight out. One thing you may notice that we've already pulled up the baseboards and painted them, except in the closet. We just cleaned that out today, and we will have to do those, so I'll show you that step, because this would be a little hard if we did not already pull all of that up. And so I'm gonna go ahead. And our trash allows you about a 3 foot wide, so this is close enough to 3 foot. I'm just gonna pull it all Now this closet on this one side will have 2 Phillips screws that you will need to take out. And they are kind of long, and these ones are put in at kind of a weird angle. The second one wasn't, just the first one. And these things should come straight out just like that. Make sure to hold on to this. You're not going to want to lose those. And you can just kind of keep pulling. This is where it might be a little harder, so I'm going to go ahead and use this and begin to pop these out. So I will break off these, pretty easy to do by hand, these long brad nails, and just pull them straight out. I'll then paint this with first a coat of oil-based, and then a coat of, cannot remember the technical name of it, but it is a paint that kind of gets harder as it goes. It starts with an A, maybe an alkaline or something like that. Also make sure you don't have any trash or anything else like that. This is a good time to go ahead and pull all that stuff out. And so you just keep coming with the carpet, and with those baseboards off, it comes out super easy, and this can go be taken to the trash. So the next thing to do is just go ahead and start ripping up the padding. This stuff normally comes up pretty easy. Then you can grab your claw, and I just like to push it under, and it does pretty good at just popping it all out. Do be careful though, those are sharp as can be. And so these ones are actually just stapled to the ground, and so if you look closely you can see where the staples are, and that might be helpful as well because there's not that many. It looks like it's about every 6-7 inches. And you just keep pulling the padding down. If you kind of roll this carpet or the padding up with it, you can kind of just throw some of the chunks inside as you roll, which is kind of a nice little trick. We're still gonna have to come back and get all of those little pieces. So now we have the task of getting all of these little carpet staples up. And a lot of times if you take a pry bar and just do exactly what I'm doing here, just kind of scrape the ground, especially if you can figure out the directions that they were putting the staples in. It doesn't take a ton of effort, but it does take some force. You normally can figure out what direction. Now the little staples that they did put the tack strips down, those ones are a bit harder to get out. And honestly, sometimes if I can't get them out quick, I will just hit them back down into the floor, making sure that they're level. Another helpful thing is to have a little trash can nearby. That way as you're doing this, you can kind of see what's left. We are still going to shop vac this just to make sure all this dust and debris from the years the house has been here, and probably the contractors who did the house probably did not vac real well because they're always in a hurry to get on to the next house. Do be careful getting splinters too. When I'm going over this, I'm going pretty lightly, because this plywood is definitely has the ability to give you splinters. if you weren't doing something different with this room, or we're gonna wait a little bit till we have the funds to be able to do this bedroom, you could just pull this straight out and you wouldn't have to worry about making it nice and pretty cut, because it wouldn't matter. But since it's going to be at least a little bit before we do that, wanted to make sure it was a pretty nice cut along the edge. And if there's a little gap, I'm not too worried for now, but when we have the final product, it will look perfectly flush how it's supposed to. So at this time, go ahead and shot back everything. Know that sometimes when you're shot backing, you can also find ones you missed, and so it may be helpful to have that pry bar nearby too. Just gonna go ahead and paint these real quick so it has time to dry. And if there's any other spots that need just a little touch up, this is a great time to go ahead and do that now. We'll do this to all of the different joints. With this, I am going to pull the carpet up just a little bit. We may need a second coat, but I'm going to go ahead and put it back for now. So I'm not sure why this didn't record, but we're going to measure from the left side to the right side where the stair nose is going to be, and it should be 36 1/4 of an inch. You will want to make sure you're pretty much butted up against the sides of the stairs, and I'll have some arrows on here to make sure you know exactly what I'm talking about, but 36 1/4 of an inch is what we're going to cut this stair nose to be. So we're going to go ahead and take our piece of stair nose, and we'll go ahead and open it up. You're going to put 36 1/4 on it. And then I just kind of go ahead and make my line a little bigger, because one weird kind of thing I like to do, it doesn't always work well, but sometimes it really does help give you a little better finish. Little blue tape, and you put it right where your cut is going to be. And that's why I put a little extra on there, right where that cut's going to be. And your saw will rip right through it. But it does sometimes give you a little cleaner cut. So as we peel that off, you can see that gave you a nice clean edge, which is really what you want on a stair nose. And so that will work perfect just like that. We're not going to put this on just yet. We do have to go ahead and start a starter strip. So we went ahead and cut this. We are not going to put this in yet, but we're just going to test it to see how well it fits, and it fits nice and snug. That's exactly what we want. And so that stair nose will work really well in just a little bit. And so what we're going to do is we're going to get a full piece, and we're going to notice that the full piece is way too big. And so what we have to do is we'll have to cut each of these pieces appropriately. And at least at this point, it's going to be, looks like about 38, because you want to leave about 1/4 of an inch off on each side. So you have about 1/8 of an inch. And so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and measure this, which is 7/8. And that's 3/4, and hopefully this is the same size. Yep, 3/4 and 7/8. So we'll go ahead and get that piece, and we will go ahead and cut that. So this one will go all the way up against here, and I'll show you in a second once we get that cut. So the measurement we got was just 38 7/8. So I'm just gonna put a little line there. Then I'm gonna grab my speed square, and we'll go ahead and cut that first. We can still save that for a later piece. That would be a starter piece on that side. So if we're starting with the stairs this way, this one is gonna be what's underneath that lip. And so we are gonna have to take a chunk off of both sides. So I'm going to flip it this way just so it's easier to draw that chunk off. But do remember that that is the way it has to go. So it's a 3/4 and it is 7/8 high. So that's the notch on that side we'll have to make. And that's the notch we'll have to make on that side as well. So go ahead and take a jigsaw and we'll cut this piece out. So that right there will get us exactly what we need. It'll be the width that it needs to, and then we'll have those two stair pieces cut out perfectly. So now that we have this piece cut, we'll go ahead and test it for sizing. And that is exactly what we want. Now, if you look closely, you still have proper access for this piece to snap in. We're not going to snap it in just yet because I want to get a little bit more flooring in, but that will line up perfectly. The color matches exactly what we want, and this will be just perfect for that front stair nose. The rest of the stairs are all done. We were waiting to work on this section up here, and so we're just going to continue to put piece after piece and pound them in and get them exactly where they need to go. So I'll kind of show you that process as we go. Now with this stuff, it does have these locking grooves in it, and so as we go along, we're going to have to lock it in, and then we will tap it with a rubber mallet. And so we will have to kind of work through some of these weird angles with this, and sometimes you do mess these up. It's just kind of the way it happens, and so you do your best to make sure your measurements are correct. And you do want about 1/8 of an inch on both sides as a gap. This floor does have the ability to float because it does have cork on the backside, which is not a bad thing. It also makes it a little quieter with that cork as well. I'm going to go ahead and put this one against the wall back there so we can begin to see. This is going to be hard for me to video, but I'm going to do my very best to kind of show you what I'm doing. Not all of them are this difficult, but typically the first little bit. So I just go ahead and put a mark right on the edge here. So when I'm cutting it, the trim will stay over it. And then I'm going to go ahead and measure how far. And because this is hollow underneath, it's not connected to the floor, it's connected to the wall, I am going to put it at like probably 3.5 inches. And then I will go ahead and cut this section out, and then we'll have to put this piece in afterwards. And so this piece is coming off. And then this tongue and groove will slip right where it needs to. I'm gonna go out and cut that. I'm not gonna show you all the cuts. It's pretty basic after you've seen one of them. You're gonna use a miter saw, then you'll use a jigsaw to cut out pieces like this. You're just gonna cut down, and then I normally cut at an angle, then finish it off. So we're gonna go ahead and try to dry fit this one in, and it does look like I'm gonna have to cut off more here. I think I only did 2.5. I did not do 3.5. That is sometimes possible. Remember to always measure twice and cut once. It does save a lot of time. So we'll go ahead and try to place this again. This should give us a lot better fit, which it did. And so that is exactly what we want. We still have to get this little piece in here. You probably can't see it too much because of the bad camera angle. Then we'll also want to make sure this, you can go ahead and take this and just go ahead and tap it in. That just makes it secure and locked here. You don't have to do that every time, but there are times that it does feel like it's starting to slip out. And if you're not as far up against the wall that way as you want, you can also tap it like that. And so I like to use this edge. There are two edges on this side, but this tapping block works really well just to make sure everything is smooth and in place. We're gonna go ahead and measure this piece over here, and it is 1 inch by 14.5. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut a piece for that. You will want to make sure that it has this lip on it. Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and pull this piece back out since we're not really hit into anything yet. And we'll go ahead and put this piece on first. And now that that's secure, we should be able to come right back in here and get that all right where it needs to be as well. Perfect. And that gets you right what you need. We still have this little end to get as well. I am going to just tap this back, just a quick tap or two to get that where I want that. Perfect. So we're going to measure this and go ahead and cut this piece. And so it has to have the opposite end, kind of that starter right here. And so we'll go ahead and measure. And I like to measure off the previous one to right here. And so we have 9.5. So once you have your piece, it is important that when you're cutting it, you have this piece is what you're saving, because what will happen is you're going to push this in. Then as you're doing it, you're going to hammer with a rubber mallet down right here. And that's going to lock this in place, which is kind of crazy, but it does work. And every now and again, you might get a little bit off and you might have a little bit of a gap here versus here. And that's why it's really important to get one of these little things right here. There's just the slightest little bit, but you just go ahead and tap that in. And then we'll start with the next piece. And so I'm starting with a chunk of a piece. I just did the floors in my other bedroom. So this is just a leftover chunk because I like it staggered, not staggered. I like it kind of random. And so you're not supposed to have 6 inches within a joint. So there's a joint going to be here, the other joint here, that's more like 24 inches. And so that will work perfect. And then we'll measure from here to the wall and we'll go ahead and cut that piece. $27.5. So I brought both pieces back in to show you something. I normally save the ones I just cut for the next starter. And so I'm just going to put that off to the side. Go ahead and pick this up. And we're just going to place it in. We want to make sure this line right here is completely perfect the whole way down. You want to take your time. Sometimes even run your hand across it. A lot of times I'll put my hand here. 4 to 5 good taps. Make sure you still have a little bit of a gap over here. And that next piece is done. We'll go ahead and start with this piece right here. This is the one we just cut. It's that leftover portion. Then we will go ahead and measure this. And so that is 37 inches. So we'll go ahead and cut that and put this piece down. So I brought both pieces back in. I threw the one off to the side. Here is that one that is 37 inches. And go ahead and tap it into place. Perfect, just like that. Go ahead and start this next one. And remember, it's supposed to be less than 6 inches. That's about 8, 9 inches. No less than 6. I think I said that backwards. No less than 6. But looky here. Oh man, it hits and it has a gap over the end. I'm going to show you my favorite trick to do. We're not going to be able to do this a lot on this this hallway for a few reasons. One of them is it's just not wide enough. But what I do is I go ahead and flip my board over. And I put it right to where I want it to be.
Know that this only works if it is too big and overlaps.
And then I mark right here. And then I just cut it. And that means I don't have to measure as much. And it goes a lot quicker. And so I just put a mark. I'll go ahead and make that cut. When you're doing a bedroom or something like that, or a big living space, that is one of the quickest little tips I can tell you to do. Super helpful. Go ahead and tap that in. That's ready just how it should be. I'm going to go ahead and see how close I can get to using a full sheet on this one. So I'm going to go ahead and mark this one right here and right here. Then I'll go ahead and measure. Because I want it to go up under this, I'm going to measure just a little past. That puts me at 5.5 inches. So I'm going to come down this way on it. To 5.5 inches. And I always just like to kind of test to see really where I'm at. And that is probably just about right. So we'll go ahead and begin to cut that piece. So we'll go ahead and fit this piece back in. And I had a little bit of paint on it, so I just took my time and went ahead and got that off.
This is why it's so important to get all of those staples out, because sometimes you do have to pound them in if you have it, because it will not work with this floating floor.
Put that under, and then we'll go ahead and have to lock that back into place. So we do want to make sure this is locked in. So sometimes you do have go ahead and hit that in. Lots of time these kits will also come with a tool that looks like this. This one works really well when you don't have enough room to bring a hammer back. So you just go ahead and put it right there on the lip.
Here's another view of what I just did, because it's not going to be very visible in that corner.
So we're going to go ahead and measure this section right here. And that'll give us 9 5/8. Then we'll come back over here. This last little section in the closet, which is 4 3/4 by 14 1/2. Then once it's gone ahead and lined up, go ahead and tap it in. So there is a piece of trim here that I've already painted. I did have to pull that off just a little bit to be able to get this in here. As you remember, I like to bring up my old pieces, and so I'm going to go ahead and try to use this one. Ooh, This one is perfect. That doesn't always happen. Actually, like never. And so we'll go ahead and put that one straight down. I am gonna tap this one in just to make sure it goes in smooth. This thing is meant to interlock, so it is good to have these joints. It actually makes it stronger, which is kind of strange, but the design of it is that it makes it stronger as it has the different joints. So I'm gonna go ahead and make probably a cut or two on a couple of boards so we can go ahead and get those down and just start working our way back. We got done with the hardest part, which was that medicine cabinet there. Those are always the most difficult. It's got the most angles and stuff like that. So I've just made a couple of them as kind of starter strips of some varying sizes. And that way I won't have to run down as often. And so since we just had one that was the full size, I'm gonna go a little smaller. Let's go ahead and use this one so I can get underneath this door jamb as well. So yeah, that right there is gonna work perfect. That way it's locked in properly. We'll go ahead and measure for this cut. Or if we have one that's pretty similar in size, actually this one is. Go ahead and show you that trick I showed you a few minutes ago. That's right where I want it to be, up against the wall there. Then you just draw your mark here and sometimes put a check and an X where I don't want the stuff, so this will be scrap piece. And since it doesn't have the start on this side, I normally just throw these away. Very few places you can use these. If you do have a register, you might be able to use it, but I can't think of many other places without that starter strip. Then we'll go ahead and put that on and tack it down. Go ahead and make sure you're all lined up. If you're not, take a little bit of time. Go ahead and tap it into place. Go ahead and use this one next. And so one thing I do want to show you, so we're gonna be doing a transition here from tile. This is a pretty thick tile, so we have a big chunk of difference in space, but we also have to put one of those metal pieces down here. So we're gonna go ahead and grab that and measure the distance that it needs to be. So what I like to do is I just normally do just kind of a rough estimate on where it's at. And so I like it to just have a little bit of a gap on both sides. So I'll just choose here. These tin snips work really well to just cut this metal. And I'll probably just throw that away because there's not much left to it. Then we'll go ahead and screw this down. These are just those 1-inch cabinet screws that I was using before. The screws that they give you just really are not very good. And because there's such a difference in size, we will have a special piece that goes on here that I'll show you guys later. It's not just a basic T transition strip. It's a little bit different shaped, and so I'll show you that in a minute. And you just put all the screws in the little holes. That's all you need to do there. And go ahead and put that snug right up against there. Then we'll go ahead and measure the distance for our next piece that we need. So that's 30 1/4. Go ahead and tap that down. Go ahead and get the next piece. Do make sure there's nothing in these rails on this, because it will make it very hard for everything to snap together and lay flush. And then we'll go ahead and measure this. So that will be 12.5 inches. So go ahead and put that in how it's supposed to. And that's 23 5/8. Nope. 22 5/8. So we'll go ahead and put that in and go ahead and tap it down. Just kind of curious how far out this one will go. That's a little too close. Do a little small one here. And then we'll measure and cut. .34 inches on the dot. We'll do this one as well. We'll go ahead and put a mark here. I already drew it on there because I messed up and it wasn't recording properly. Then this will be 2 3/4. 2 3/4. And so 2 3/4 is right here. And so we'll cut that piece out. And then we'll also get the other side at 15 inches at the same time. So since the camera's on this side, I am just going to go ahead and do this one first. And I am going to have to trim just a little bit more off. Probably going to need about that much more, because I don't want that to show through, which is not a problem. So we'll just cut a little bit off there. I'll go ahead and show you over here. After you've done this for a while, it is easy to start getting all these backwards. Everything starts looking the same. So we'll go ahead and trim that up real quick. So that whole piece just locked in exactly how we want it. Go ahead and work on this piece next. So that's 26.5. Then go ahead and tap it in, just like so. I'm going to use most of this. I'm going to go ahead and put a line to cut on it. I don't like just a little bit on the end, so I'm going to cut 6 or so inches off on that side. So it was more like 3.5 inches I cut off. So this next one's a weird cut as well. As we come up here, we'll see that we have a lot we have to work around. And so we will do our very best to make it as clean as possible. So one of the reasons I used this piece in particular instead of just starting with a full size, just so I had this and I could kind of make it happen as I go. So we're going to want right here. So we'll go ahead and measure over here, which is 4 inches on the dot. I'm going to go in just a hair less than 4 inches, so then we can cut it properly. So Then we will want another cut right here. So again, you got that 4 inches. This will be that just a little less than 4 inches mark. So we will turn it right here and get it to cut this. Just like that. It'll look like a stair almost. So after you have that, you go ahead and grab your rubber mallet, tap it in. I am going to want to make sure it's completely in. Just like that. So with this scrap starter piece, just go ahead and put it. Actually, I want to be real careful. You see what I almost just did? The same spot. That becomes a weak spot, so do not do that. So I'll use this piece on the next one after this one. I know it seems kind of silly, but don't put those next to each other. It becomes just a nasty weak spot, and you don't want that. So we'll go ahead and measure. And that is a 34 1/4. Go ahead and put this next one on and push it down. And then this is the scrap from the last one. That way when we're out there, we can go ahead and make this cut and this cut just to save some time and steps up and down the stairs. So that is 13 inches on the dot, and that is 26 1/2. 13 and 26 1/2. So here's that 13-inch piece. And here's that 26 1/2. And then we'll go over back here, scoot everything back a little bit more. So both this one and this one are a bit too long in my opinion. They're too close to that side, so I am going to just cut both of these, probably 3 to 4 inches on this side. So I'll be back in a second. I'm going to tap this one up just a little bit. And I'm not going to use that one I just cut. I'm going to use this other one. Then I'm going to go back to that one. And then we'll get both of these and figure out the measurements so we can cut those properly. So the first one is 10 inches. The second one is 19 inches. So now that we come back over to this side, we're going to have to put another one of these strips down before we can start the next segment. So we're gonna have to get a metal strip. So same concept, kind of just a rough estimate, a little smaller than the actual. Then sometimes they have all the holes punched out, sometimes they don't. Just the end of your screwdriver bit will work really well at popping those out, or at least popping them through. Sometimes they don't fall out, sometimes they do. Go ahead, and if you did pop them out, go ahead, and I'm just going to put them on the carpet because I'm going to vacuum that later. And then we will start by screwing down this side once we get it nice and centered. And then I'll go to the other side and get it nice and centered. And then hit up all the other holes. Then we also have the one behind us. I am going to have to get another piece of this metal stuff that comes with it. It's just too short, so. So you just kind of guesstimate again and just cut it. And push out all of the little pieces so your screws go in nice and quick. And grab yourself some screws. And again, I like to start on one side and then line myself up on the other. And I might have to trim a little bit of this off because it does look like I put it on just a little too close to the edge. So I actually did this piece wrong, but I think we'll be able to use this again down here. So I'm not too worried. So I'm just gonna go ahead and pick this back up and out. We may have to trim a little bit of it, but I think I'll be able to reuse that. I forgot, I gotta go around the edge here. I don't know what I was thinking. Must be tired from doing this all day. And I'm gonna go ahead and cut a couple inches off so these two lines don't match up. So go ahead and get your Sharpie And we're going to go ahead and mark it here. And that'll let us know at where this needs to be cut. Then it needs to be 5 5/8 long. So we'll go ahead and cut this chunk out, and that will give us the ability for that to line up perfectly. And just to kind of show you, this is sometimes good to do to help visualize it, of where exactly it's going to sit, is that piece will be cut right there, and you'll be over that much. So you can go ahead and put that piece in right where it needs to go. And we will have to hit it that direction a little bit to lock it in place. There we go. And then you do have that ability for that transition to be perfect. Now, I am going to tap it just a touch that way. There we go. That way it sits a little flush there, so when we put that other piece on, it will work perfect. Go ahead and measure this one. 21 1/4. So that's exactly how we want that to go. The next piece, we're gonna have to be careful because we gotta cut this chunk on this side. So I'm just gonna grab this little one, put it right there. And then I'm gonna measure to the inside over here. So it's a little bit out of your camera view. But it's right where that threshold is. 32 1/2. Then we'll come up here and get that measurement. So that's the measurement for right there. And then we will go ahead and measure the depth. That's going to be 2 1/4. 2 1/4. So that's what we're going to take off. Then this will fit right in there. And that looks really good around there. I am going to tap it forward, then link the two sides together. There we go. Now I'm going to reuse this piece I messed up on, so I'm going to get the measurement for that, which is 40 1/4. Which is pretty much right what that is. So let's see if that works over here. And I'm going to have to scoot some stuff back because we're getting towards the end. Man, look at that. You couldn't have guessed for that to be any more perfect. I do know it's because it's the same distance, but that's okay. Don't tell anybody. Makes me feel better about life. So that is 25 on the dot. Next piece we need is 11.5. Next one is 17 3/8. So this piece is actually going to be kind of hard to really do well. In fact, I think I'm just going to cut a small piece so it's real easy for me to kind of finagle it over here. So two and a quarter.
Make sure to go ahead and double check this cut because there's a lot going on here.
I'm going to go ahead and cut this piece out, and I may have to do a little bit more work over here, but let's just go ahead and try to get that piece in and get it where it needs to go. So we'll also need to cut a little chunk here. It'll have to be about like that. Okay, that fit like a glove. That was perfect. That doesn't always happen. You sometimes have to go back and cut it a couple of different times. But I'm happy with how that turned out. The big thing is you just don't want anything seen around these edges. If you can see the plywood floor below, that's a bad sign. $25 and a quarter. Looks good right there. We'll go ahead and make sure we're nice and snug this direction too. So we have one last piece we're gonna have to cut, which is right here. This whole thing, and I do want to make sure it goes under on both sides, and so we will have to be kind of careful how we do this because it will have to be just a little longer. So it'll need to be 33 1/4 long by 1 3/4 on that side and 1 7/8 on that side. So you will have to kind of bow and bend that in a little bit. And then you just start to push it in. And that right there gives you a nice clean fit all the way along there. That's perfect. We're gonna go ahead and put all these transition strips on next. So this is the first one we're gonna do. We really have to make sure that this stair nose is perfect because it is quite expensive. And so once you got it all lined up, you're just gonna go ahead and tap it in nice and firm all the way down. And that's a nice fit right there. I'll show you guys it on this side. So that's a nice clean fit. So that right there is a nice clean fit. And we're gonna go ahead and move on to the next transition strip. And remember, this one had a little bit higher lip. So there's two different kinds of transition strips that I have. I'm gonna show you the first one, which is not the one we're going to use. This one almost looks like it's a T. We're gonna use this one on the bedroom over here, but this one is not correct for this. We need one that has a little bit of a rise up. So I'm gonna go get that out of my garage. So this one is called a T-mold most of the time, and then this one is called a reducer. Not sure if you can see that well on the camera, but it will make it to where it reduces the size down and allows us to have the proper height. And so I'm gonna go ahead and measure for this. And I believe all these doors will probably be the same, but I am going to go ahead and measure each one in case there's any settling or anything in my house. And so this is a 31. So it's 31 3/8. So 31 3/8. So I use that same trick I showed you earlier to help you get the cleanest cut you can. We'll go ahead and dry fit this just to give you an idea on what that's going to look like. And that right there will be what that will look like. There is a bit of a transition down due to the fact that you have tile and you have grout underneath that, but it gives it a nice clean ability and also helps block a little bit of the bathroom light as well. So you're just going to go ahead and take this and you're just going to hit it down in to place, and that's all you have to do for that. Go ahead and measure this next one for this bedroom, and same concept. I like them nice and tight, so that is 31 1/4. So we'll go ahead and get that cut so we can go ahead and put that in. I am going to just go with the basic T-mold for this one because in the near future we are going to be ripping this up. So it may not look perfect right now, and I am okay with that because we are going to go ahead and make this happen. So I might even put this up and over it. This one does seem like it is sometimes a little harder to know exactly where it gets started. And so I did just kind of put the carpet right on top of that That way I can slide if we do something else. I can also pop these off. I got these fairly reasonable. They were only a few dollars a piece. It was in a clearance section, and they actually match perfect. So very happy with those. We'll go ahead and move over here and do this one next. So this one is 31 1/4 as well. So again, I keep using that blue tape. It's just a little trick, very inexpensive. Hopefully this peels off okay. Sometimes they can be a little bit of a bear to peel these off. Sometimes you have to put them under hot soapy water, especially if they've been on there forever and a day. But hopefully we can just peel it right off. Hoping for maybe just a couple of pieces, not 500. I'm just pushing against it and it's starting to peel off, which is kind of cool. I didn't know you could do that on this kind. But just so it doesn't have any of that residue or dust on there. Perfect. And we'll vac one last time before we're done anyways. So same concept. This one should be easier than the carpet one we just did as we begin to place this on. And that right there is it. Nice little transition strip. That also will help block some of that light as well. We got one last one to do. So 32. And I'm going to try to get this one underneath the sides a little bit more, 32 inches. So that right there is done. We're going to go ahead and put back up some of the baseboards and show you what that looks like. But just wanted to kind of show you where we're at and all that we've done so far. I do know these closet baseboards I probably will not be able to put in until tomorrow. I was unable to paint them until today, so I will let those really dry out well. But I will go ahead and put on this right here. So we'll go with the same holes that it had before in the same locations, making sure you're lined up. Now it may be a little different because we did have carpet, the height of it, but that is okay. I'm not very good with a drill left-handed. And so that's gone ahead and tightened back down in. We'll start getting the baseboards on. Some of these were labeled correctly, some of them not so much, but it's okay. We're just using a brad nail gun here, and it has white tips on the end. It works okay. It does help reducing maybe a little bit of the amount you have to touch up paint. Go ahead and tack this in. I only do it every couple of feet or so unless I'm close to kind of an end piece. Then I might put a couple more in. And that right there is it. We're going to go ahead and touch up paint on all of the nails we just put in. But if this was helpful, please like and subscribe. Please comment if you do have any questions. I hope this hallway, even though it's small, kind of gives you a good idea of what you're able to do and not do. And you can kind of see all the progress. I know I didn't get this. I'm going to get that tomorrow, and I'm going to go ahead and touch up paint. But it looks pretty good. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any questions, please let me know. Please like and subscribe if you haven't done so yet.